Good evening. Thank you, Junior Achievement, for this just wonderful recognition. And I want to congratulate Dana and Sean. And I want to thank the people who spoke in my video. Your check's in the mail. But I really want to thank my family. My parents are here, and my son and his wife, and my friends. But I have to most thank my partner since I was 15 years old, my wife, Linda. She has been a silent partner. She's been a silent partner in most of our business ventures, but she's an equal partner in every way, and I really think we have made each other who we are. Thank you. So, this is internship season at VIA. For 25 years, we have had paid internships. We had one in the first year. Now I think, Leanne, we have 12 or 13 this year. And it's a really exciting time. I love when these young, vibrant, very smart people show up. They're always looking for advice. They want an advantage. They want to get ahead. And so over the years, I've tried to suggest things that might matter. And it has evolved. And what I try to talk about now, as it relates to business but life, are things that really my wife has focused me on. See, Linda does hospice work. And for years, she's been working with people at the end of life. And what she says is that at the end of life, people never talk about the money they have. They never talk about the power they wielded. They never talk about the fame they achieved. Never. What they talk about are their relationships. How strong were their relationships? And they talk about, did they find meaning in their life? That's it. Relationships and meaning. And sometimes the Red Sox. They really care about the Red Sox. Sometimes. But mostly, it's relationships and meaning. So what I've tried to do is make sure I'm giving advice that sort of gets us all ready for that final exam in life that we're all going to take, right? So like a question I always get is, what classes should I take to be most successful? Now, I've got a degree in engineering, I got a degree in business, and I have an honorary degree in art, which means I didn't do anything for that one. And all of those degrees, didn't matter as a class I've been taking for a long time. Some weeks I'm really failing and struggling in it, other weeks I'm doing okay. And it's an advanced class in compassion. Now, I really believe the most important thing in my business life has been my ability to try to cultivate compassion. Now, that's something that you'll never hear at B school. You certainly never heard it at engineering school. But I believe it's really the most important thing. And I'll go back to one of the jobs I had in high school. I was a clerk at Laverdia's Super Drugstore on Water Street in Augusta, Maine. I had a beautiful powder blue polyester Nehru collar smock I looked pretty good in. And I used to work Sunday mornings, and I'd go and it was super boring. And I went in one time, and they had a flyer from one of the brands, Chantilly perfume. And it was a national sales competition. I said, well, I'll try to sell some of this stuff. And I looked at it, and it looked like it was for old people. And I went, oh, after church, a lot of the older couples come in. And I also used to recognize that often, sadly, the husbands would sort of not pay attention to their wives. So, and I was like, didn't really like talking to older people back then, young. So I wrote my first ever ad. And it said, remember your beauty, Chantilly. Now, come on. Greg Smith, our chief creative officer, saying, no wonder he's never become a copywriter. Right. But I stuck it by the register, and women came in after church, and believe it or not, they started regaling me with beautiful stories. And every time they spoke, they started the same way. Oh, I was such a looker. They all remembered they were beautiful. Now that's compassion. It's me being empathized with somebody even different than me about being lonely and being ignored. And then empathy turned into action is compassion. And all I had to do was listen to them. So simple. It's great for me. I loved listening to them. They bought a lot of perfume. I actually got a national sales award working one Sunday a week. So, compassion works. Now, the longest time I was ever able to hold down a job, it was CEO of VIA. And I can say one thing about my time in that job is I did the best I could. I did the best I could. Some days not so good, some days a little better. But what I started to believe, really believe, is that, everybody does the best they can. And you might not believe that. You might think people don't try, but I believe we all do the best we can. And that was really important for me to believe, because it was sort of the guiding principle for what my to-do list was when I was CEO. It was pretty simple, simply to help other people. And it started with that idea, well, if you're doing the best you can, even if I think you're screwing up, I'm doing the best I can. That's our connection. That's the empathy. And the action was, what if it was going to be to help you do a little bit better? And it could be, chatting to the receptionist who might be a little lonely, noodling through a complicated problem with somebody, bailing somebody out of jail. Happened. Do whatever it takes. And that movement to help someone is really the linchpin, I think, of VIA's success, not because of the little things that I did. But all the parents in the room are going to understand this statement. Your kids do what you do, not what they say, what you say, right? So I was modeling small ways, helping people, and everybody else started helping each other. And there's one thing I can say about VIA. When you show up, I love it when new clients come in. They can't believe how helpful everybody is. Everyone takes care of himself. Can I help you? Can we work together? And if you do that enough, you start to build really strong relationships. And people start to care about each other, and they care. And that's what makes VIA exceptional. And if you want to be part of an organization that can change the world, you've got to get people to care. And you can't tell them to care. They have to do it by working with each other. Just last week, VIA won the entire Arm & Hammer account. That's 17 different brands. That is an amazing accomplishment. And it's because everybody at VIA really cares. So you want some homework. How do you work on compassion? Volunteer. Volunteer for JA. If you want to take a master's class in compassion, go volunteer at Preble Street. I have learned so much from my time at Preble Street. I promise you, you will all learn something if you volunteer at Preble Street about compassion. Another question I get all the time is, who should I be like if I want to be rich? They get right to the point, right? And, I used to think about that too a lot. Maybe I'll be like Steve Jobs, or maybe Larry Bird. I couldn't play basketball that well. But, the most important thing is you have to tell young people to try the best they can to emulate themselves. How do you learn to be yourself? And I think that is so seminal if you got a shot at understanding what the meaning of your life is going to be. And it's hard to do. I was a sensitive kid, but I learned really on, if I do what people think I should do, I'll make my way. And that strategy worked pretty well. And I got an engineering degree, and I worked at a great company for 7 years in my 20s as an engineer. But in my later 20s, I just felt something was missing. I love to be around creative people, though I never thought of myself as a creative person. So I talked to Linda, and I said, well, maybe I could be around them by starting an ad agency. So I had 3 kids, was making a lot of money, had a big mortgage, and did the brilliant thing of quitting my job to start VIA, and I'd never stepped foot in an ad agency. But I knew I was drawn to creativity, and I wanted to be around creative people. And I knew I was heading towards more meaning because, in the first year, we couldn't pay ourselves. But I laughed so much. I loved going to work, and I knew I was heading in the right direction. So fast forward 20 years, and I learn a little bit, and I'm working with these amazing people at VIA, and VIA wins what's called the Small Agency of the Year award. Really prestigious award in our industry, beating out about 800 other agencies. And I said, wow, I must really have the perfect job. I'm on the top of my game. Well, about this time, Linda comes to me, our youngest is out of the house, Sam, who's here, and she says, I'm looking for my next chapter. And I just read an article that says people are happiest if they're doing things that match their innate ability. for doing things that we're naturally good at. I said, honey, that makes sense. And she found this company in Boston that does a test. She said, I'm going to take the test. I'll go down with for moral support because I have the perfect job for me. But go take this 2 days of tests. And I remember I go to the office and the woman, admission test, sits down and she looks at me and she says, you must be really unhappy in your job. What do you mean? I love my job, I said. She said, no, I get it. You've been good at your job. But all of your natural attributes say you should be creating. You should be making things. And I didn't know what to do with that. And I sat with it. And for the next year or two, it started slowly bubbling up that I realized maybe there was another chapter for me. And I realized that the people I work with, the leadership of VIA is here tonight, Leanne and Greg and Ivan and David Burfy, they are brilliant. They have an incredible ability to do what they do. And I knew moving the leadership to them and me looking at the next chapter was the right thing. And Lynn and I thought we would be more meaningful if we started to transfer the ownership to the employees. And what it allowed me to do is to explore. And now I spend a lot of time in a studio by myself. I'm a big extrovert. I never would have thought. I spend hours by myself. And do you know why I think I'm heading in the right direction of finding more meaning? Is that I am totally joyous when I'm in my studio. Can't really explain why. I tell you, I have many people that will look at me askance and sort of raised eyebrow, but I just feel like that's where my path has to go next. And so that's the thing. It's hard to listen to yourself, and I think it takes a bit of chutzpah to go start that company or to go do something that maybe other people will raise an eyebrow at. But I really think it's the only way you're going to find meaning. If you want a little homework on how to maybe cultivate this and maybe listen to yourself more deeply, this is the one thing I wish someone told me to do when I was young, is meditate. Might not be for everybody. I started it about 10 years ago. And what happens is when you quiet your mind, you really start to understand what's important. So that's what I try to share with the interns. 2 things. Cultivate compassion if you want to have really strong relationships. And try to listen to yourself deeply if you hope to find meaning. And I think if I did that, I'm banking that maybe I'll do okay in that final exam. So I'm going to give you one more homework assignment. This is a fun one. This is from an artist I learned a lot from, a German guy named Joseph Beuys. He says, let someone dangerous in for tea. Make small signs that say yes and spread them all over your house. Become a friend of freedom and uncertainty. Take a lot of naps, dream wild, imaginative dreams, draw on the walls, read every day. Imagine you are enchanted. Giggle with children. Listen to old people like me. Be free, praise yourself, let go of fear, play with everything, and preserve the child in you. Thank you for this honor. Really appreciate it.